Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star episode number 328 based on novel. So let's start. The Universe Knights and Undying Servants within Thousand Treasures River all looked up at the boundless golden light up in the sky. They were all thrilled as they discussed this event. Unlimited Law Ocean is pouring in, and the undying power flows into Luo Feng's body. What a scene! Primal Chaos City leader looked up, amazed. Even the 108 princes of 9 Remoteness Master won't make such a scene when they become undying. Chaos City leader had seen so much, and he knew this was the case for some beings with large bodies but low density. Hence, the remote ocean body at the height of more than 55,000 miles could transform into an ocean with a diameter of 6 billion miles. Although the ocean was significantly larger, they both contained the same amount of energy. Since the water didn't have the same consistency as flesh and blood, the ocean had a comparatively lower density. However, an ocean with a diameter of 6 billion miles still held a godly power that was billions of times greater than human universe knights. I've witnessed the scene of several special life forms becoming undying, said Primal Chaos City leader. Some of them were tens of millions of miles tall, but the scene was nothing compared to this one. The more impressive the scene was, the more powerful the special life forms were. Does this mean, he wondered, that Luo Feng is stronger than all the special life forms I've known? Chaos City leader found this impossible to fathom, but it was difficult to argue in the face of the unprecedented power that came from the arrival of universe origin law. Luo Feng. There are some deep secrets behind him, Primal Chaos City leader whispered. Perhaps he's only revealing a small portion of his power in front of me. He smiled. All intelligent beings would hide their trump card, it was ingrained in them. Fantastic. When Luo Feng becomes a universe knight, the scene might be more terrific than many universe masters. There's soon to be born a supreme being within human race that can intimidate billions of races in the universe. Primal Chaos City leader nodded mildly. He didn't know what fate Luo Feng had met with. By all appearances, everything he knew, even his remote ocean body, wouldn't have led to such a scene. After all, the remote ocean body only rivaled one of the 108 princes, who were just mediocre special life forms. Obviously, Luo Feng was hundreds if not thousands of times stronger than he looked. This disciple of mine. Primal Chaos City leader looked at Luo Feng's palace from afar and saw Luo Feng sitting there with his legs crossed. The original earthling body had completely become undying. How strong this force is. He smiled. Inside Luo Feng's palace, Luo Feng sat with his legs crossed. The godly force permeated the palace. Chen Chen Emperor and Ji Hong Emperor were both thrilled. Terrific. The force was stronger than that of ordinary universe knights. Master. Chen Chen Emperor and Ji Hong Emperor, who were both groveling, exchanged eye contact, looking frightened. Inside the internal world, an ocean of godly power poured in from the hollow, flooding into the bloody sea. The internal world looked like the apocalypse had come. Howl. Golden horned beast floated in the sky among the pouring waters of the godly power ocean, howling with excitement. Ha ha. Fantastic. Fantastic. Luo Feng, dressed in black, stood atop the golden horned beast, looking at the godly power ocean. My original earthling body, golden horned beast body, and Mosha body became undying immediately. Soul imprint merged with the godly power completely, and the godly power is all mine. However, this bloody sea of mine. Luo Feng looked at the bloody sea from afar. Its color was changing. It was originally blood red, but the color appeared to be fading. The density of godly power in the ocean kept getting higher. The limitless waters of the godly power ocean poured down and filled the area. The energy a universe knight requires to recover his godly body costs so much that it's much more costly than a treasure, Luo Feng murmured. My remote ocean's godly power is better in quality than a universe knight's, and it has billions of times more godly power, which means my remote ocean is more precious than billions of treasures combined. Perhaps it's as valuable as a true treasure, even a high-end true treasure. Luo Feng smiled looking at the remote ocean. With this remote ocean by my side, will there be any universe knights who can make me cower? Luo Feng suddenly understood the source of 9 Remoteness Masters' pride. While in the 9 Remoteness Ocean, 9 Remoteness Master wasn't even afraid of Universe Supreme Masters. As for Luo Feng, few Universe Knights could strike him down in his remote ocean. As enormous as the remote ocean was, the Gold Law Ocean from the Universe Origin was much mightier. After a short while, the entire bloody sea was transformed into a godly power ocean. The water was tumbling in the ocean and was made up of godly power 1 billion times stronger than a sector lord's power. Remote ocean, with a diameter of 6 billion miles. Luo Feng looked down at the remote ocean. Creation. Suddenly, a remote ocean body that was more than 5,000 miles tall walked out from the waves. Recover. The larger the body was, the more quickly he absorbed the godly power. A 6-foot human absorbed godly power hundreds of millions of times more slowly than a world tree 60 million miles tall. This went without saying, appetite of an ant was nothing compared to a dragon. A dragon would eat more in a single bite than an ant could eat in its entire life. In the same way, a godly body standing 5,000 miles tall would only take the remote ocean a couple of minutes to supply its energies. Dissipate. Gather. Remote ocean body instantly dissipated into water and merged with the ocean. The remote ocean expanded, but only slightly. An outsider probably wouldn't have been able to tell simply by looking at it. It's true that after becoming undying, the remote ocean can expand further, Luo Feng whispered. However, remote ocean can only expand by absorbing godly power gradually. It's so large that it needs a huge amount of godly power to increase its diameter by even a foot. How many years did it take 9 Remoteness Master to expand his ocean? Luo Feng felt fortunate. If he hadn't become undying, and couldn't transform his bodies into godly ones at one time, he would have needed an eternity to supply enough godly power for an ocean with a diameter of more than 6 billion miles. Inside the palace. Luo Feng smiled and got up. Master, Jian Chen Emperor and Ji Hong Emperor said respectfully. You two, stay here, Luo Feng ordered, then walked out of the palace. Luo Feng teleported himself in front of the palace where Primal Chaos City Leader lived, where some of the undying servants of Universe Knights stood. So powerful. The power. 2 Universe Knights standing afar were terrified, and the undying servants were all trembling. Little did they know that this was only the force coming from the original Earthling body, and it would be hundreds of times more extraordinary if it came from the Golden Horned Beast body or the remote ocean. Luo Feng waited outside the palace. Although the door was open, everything inside was dimming, and he couldn't see things straight. Come in, came a voice from inside the palace. Luo Feng walked into the palace and saw Primal Chaos City Leader standing in the distance. Luo Feng gave a salutation. Teacher? Primal Chaos City Leader gazed at Luo Feng. Have you become undying? He asked after remaining silent for a long while. Yes, Luo Feng answered. Fantastic. You're doing better than I thought. Primal Chaos City Leader nodded with satisfaction. He was content, happy, and even exhilarated. He nurtured all these disciples because he wanted to produce more great beings who could become the future pillars of the human race. Not only did Luo Feng meet his expectations, but he had also surpassed that to a huge extent. Even I can't sense the extent of your power now, Primal Chaos City Leader asked. Do you think you can defeat Xuchong Emperor? Luo Feng was dazed. He answered, yes, I can. Indeed, he could. Luo Feng's Golden Horned Beast body had a higher life gene level than Xuchong Emperor. His willpower, self-created techniques, and true treasures were all Xuchong Emperor's better. Even if he was defeated once, he could be revived time and time again with his remote ocean. He wasn't afraid of anything with his newfound immortality. Fantastic. Fantastic. Primal Chaos City Leader nodded. What's your next step? Find an address of the God Country and build it, Luo Feng answered. The God Country is vital. Primal Chaos City Leader nodded. Interlayers of the space are immeasurable. Choose a deeper area. I understand. Luo Feng nodded. Go, Primal Chaos City Leader said with a wave of his hands. Luo Feng gave a salutation and left. Primal Chaos City Leader wouldn't meddle with Luo Feng's choices given his current power. Luo Feng would be the one to make his decisions from now on. Luo Feng left the primal region and arrived at the God Country of his slaves. Master of my master, where should we go now? The slave of another race groveled in veneration. Star Tower, Luo Feng whispered. Yes, the slave answered and connected with the keepsake in Star Tower. Luo Feng had left it in the Star Tower before. No need to create the God Country first. I can go there later. My remote ocean is better than most Universe Knights, quality-wise and quantity-wise, it's outrageously large. I'll see whether I can drive the most powerful true treasure, Star Tower. Luo Feng couldn't wait to give it a try. Star Tower was 9 light years tall. It was so enormous, as if it were covering half the universe. This most powerful true treasure in the universe had led to mass slaughtering among the 4 pinnacle races, yet no great being was able to take it. The true treasure became a battlefield for billions of races in the universe, and countless undying fighters died inside. Inside the tower, at the core palace, a blurry, golden light was glowing as Luo Feng walked out of the golden light. Star Tower. Luo Feng smiled. He felt the joy from Star Tower. Go to Seal Space. Luo Feng walked to the edge of the palace and a portal leading to Seal Space appeared. Star Tower was innately a sealing true treasure, and Seal Space was its center. It was vast with black ground and cordilleras. Luo Feng flew up and looked down at the ground. Remote ocean, show up. Luo Feng yelled. With the earth shattering, the remote ocean appeared in the Seal Space out of nowhere. Remote ocean body, earthling original body, Mosha body, and golden horned beast body could all enter and exit the internal world instantly. Of course, after the internal world and space fragmented, being merged and turning into a god country, it would happen no more. The internal world could still exist for a while after someone becoming undying, but after a certain amount of time, the internal world would start to crumble. A diameter of 6 billion miles. Luo Feng stood on the ocean, stepped on the waves, and pride filled his heart. Such godly power. Boundless. Star Tower. Drive? Luo Feng started to control Star Tower with his mind. Willpower wasn't closely related to actual power but had a lot to do with one's training and experience. However, with consciousness bound together with power, a sector lord could kill a universe-level fighter with one look, as his consciousness force could crush a universe-level fighter's soul. After becoming undying, consciousness depended on godly power. Luo Feng's remote ocean body had greater godly power than most universe knights, and he had a terrifically large amount of such power. His consciousness surpassed most universe knights and had reached the universe overlord level. Water pillars swirled and extended to the hollow around them. They penetrated Star Tower, and the godly power merged with the entire Star Tower. Mysterious force emanated from Star Tower, and the seal stars and lore engravings on the heavenly pillar bewildered Luo Feng. It's so complicated. I can't comprehend them at all. But it feels so good when my godly power and Star Tower completely merged with each other. I don't need to care about the meaning of the lore engravings. I'll use my force. Luo Feng clenched his teeth and growled. Move! Star Tower barely trembled, the amplification was so small that it was not visible. This is too difficult to drive. Luo Feng was a bit stupefied. He felt like an ant trying to push a rock. Godly power, burn. Drive? Luo Feng clenched his teeth. All the godly power in Star Tower started to burn, and it became 1,000 times more powerful. Star Tower started to move, and Luo Feng now felt like an ant carrying a grain of rice. Though it was still heavy, he could at least run with it. Luo Feng stopped after moving Star Tower only a little bit. Stop. Luo Feng stopped burning his godly power. Oh my god. I've already burned godly power dozens of times more than that of remote ocean body. Luo Feng was dazed. Though I can move Star Tower, I can't drive it like I do on other true treasures. Luo Feng shook his head. It was supposed to be easy when utilizing weapons. A spiritual force weapon was supposed to be at light speed when being utilized. When Luo Feng used Star Map, the stars would shoot out like lightning. On the other hand, he needed to burn his godly power when driving Star Tower, and it was still so slow that enemies could totally dodge it. No wonder, Luo Feng whispered. No wonder Master Zhuangku said I can only drive Star Tower when I become a universe knight. He gave me the 9-volume manual and knew that I had a golden horned beast body. He could tell that I could easily achieve a life gene level thousands of times greater, but he still speculated that I needed to be a universe knight. Luo Feng nodded. It seems I don't have enough godly power, and neither do I have deep lore comprehension. There were 2 ways to drive spiritual force weapons. One way was to achieve adequately deep lore comprehension, which could amplify the effect of godly power tenfold. The other way was to obtain a large amount of godly power. If I'm really able to drive Star Tower, I'll be capable of changing the size of Star Tower to make it move as fast as lightning. Luo Feng shook his head. I'm only undying. It seems that I'm not yet qualified to use this supreme true treasure. Supreme true treasures were extremely precious in the universe. Only Universe Supreme Masters or Universe Masters could use those true treasures, and one of the reasons was that the conditions for utilizing Supreme True Treasures were so harsh. Although Luo Feng had a perfect life gene level, he was still only undying. He would be dreaming if he thought he was able to drive Star Tower now. If it weren't for the remote ocean, Luo Feng couldn't have even moved Star Tower with his other bodies. After all, he had consumed an enormous amount of godly power just now. Remote ocean, come back. Luo Feng stood above remote ocean. The remote ocean went back to his internal world. I will be one of the strongest beings in the universe when I'm able to drive Star Tower, Luo Feng whispered in the palace. He understood that he couldn't compare with universe masters like Primal Chaos City Leader and Master of Skywolf, even though he was indeed incredibly strong. However, his newfound immortality could already be a problem for some universe masters. Star Map was already an ultimate technique. The first move required 160 stars, the second required 520 stars, and the third needed 1,600 stars. When all the 1,600 stars combined, their power was increased exponentially. Luo Feng presumed that he would need more stars when he created later moves of Star Map, so he took some sealed stars from Star Tower, and thus the stars on Star Map amounted to 10,000. I'll go and create my god country now. Back to the human territory. Luo Feng stepped into the golden glow. He disappeared. Inside the human territory, within the Ganwu universe. Luo Feng teleported himself into a region of space 50 million light-years from Earth where there was nothing but dying planets and stars. I'll choose this place, Luo Feng whispered. He thought he shouldn't follow any rules when choosing a god country. Zoom. Luo Feng tore the space apart and stepped into the interlayers. There were thousands of layers in the space interlayers. The first layer was shattered, fragmented space. The second layer was the god country. The third layer was the space flood. These were categorized in terms of an ordinary undying fighter. To the real supreme beings in the universe, there was only one vast layer of space interlayers. The closer it was to the original universe, the smaller the space fragments were, and the farther it was, the larger the fragments were. And the deeper the space interlayers, the more dangerous it got. At the safest areas, even sector lords could survive. However, some areas could be life-threatening even to some universe knights. Luo Feng teleported himself and flew past the god country layer. He entered the space flood layer, opened his Shawu wings, and flew deeper. Ordinary undying fighters will establish their god countries in the god country layer, Luo Feng whispered. Some supreme beings will do the same thing. However, they'll move their god country deeper toward the space flood layer when they become stronger. The deeper it was, the safer the god country would be. Godly power was infused in the Shawu wings, which made them stronger. It started to fly among the space flood like a flash of light. The space fragments are getting larger and larger, some with diameters of 6 billion miles. Luo Feng could only see those enormous space fragments. There were already land and water on some of them. They were flying at high speed, and once they hit someone, especially the ones with a diameter of 6 billion miles, they could annihilate an emperor instantly. Luo Feng flew deeper and deeper. Sometimes, he teleported himself to dodge a colossal space fragment. His internal world had a diameter of 600 billion miles, so he needed to choose a space fragment that was of equal height, width, and length. 2 days after, Luo Feng finally saw some space fragments with a diameter of 1 trillion kilometers, and some were even larger. I need to be careful. Space fragments of this size can possibly kill a universe knight. Luo Feng was extremely careful. Those space fragments all came from the space flood, and they could easily hit someone because they flew so fast. Fortunately, Luo Feng had his Shawu wings, which helped him dodge the space fragments nimbly. Luo Feng teleported himself around a space fragment that had the largest diameter of 3.9 trillion miles and the smallest diameter of 1.3 trillion miles. It could merge with his internal world completely. Build the god country. Luo Feng opened his wings and triggered his internal world. Suddenly, an invisible force burst out from his internal world, and it locked that space fragment. An enormous world showed up out of nowhere, as if it existed in an illusion or another dimension. It flew toward the targeted space fragment, and the space fragment was likewise drawn to it. One looked real, and one looked like a void. They got closer and closer to each other. Space trembled, and all the other space fragments avoided it. The world and the huge space fragment merged, stabilizing each other. A new, real world was born, and after a short while, the illusory world completely disappeared. It was his god country. Luo Feng took a step and teleported himself into his god country. The god country was filled with energy, and it was constantly expanding. The remote ocean was nothing compared to the god country. God Palace. Build. In the sky above remote ocean, a boundless amount of godly power gathered, and a towering palace came into being. It was a god palace emanating golden light and gold law energy. The top of the palace was a great spire and became the center of the god country the moment it was formed. A god country. My god country. Luo Feng stood in the sky with his eyes closed and arms opened. He felt fantastic. He felt an instant connection to this place, as if he had physically become the god country himself. Mountains. Plains. Swamps. A desert. An oasis. Lakes. Luo Feng sensed the entire god country with his eyes closed. At this moment, he and his god country were combined as one. Remote ocean's power merged with that of the god country, empowering each other multiple times. This god country is me, and I am this god country, said Luo Feng. The power of my god country might be able to kill some universe knights. Luo Feng opened his eyes and smiled. The foundation of the god country was of the utmost importance. The internal world was the foundation, and an unstable foundation wouldn't lead to a sturdy god country. Luo Feng's internal world had a diameter of 600 billion miles, which made his god country a rival of lots of universe knights. This single step made all the difference. My god country is finished. Luo Feng looked at the remote ocean. My remote ocean is able to perform my talent technique, I am the universe. Remote ocean body is already able to control the space and time around him to some extent. Together with I am the universe and the power of a god country, it's terrifically mighty. The god country, the remote ocean, and the talent technique I am the universe combined would wield exceptional power. However, if Luo Feng needed to risk everything like that, it meant he was cornered in a hopeless situation. After all, the god country was the vital element. If it was destroyed, Luo Feng could never improve himself unless a supreme being turned back time and helped him. And performing, turning back time, on Luo Feng would come at a high cost. The remote ocean guarded the god country. Luo Feng carried Mosha body, golden horned beast body, and remote ocean body at the height of more than 5,000 miles. Each of the three bodies resided in one world ring. I can enjoy fighting as much as I can now, said Luo Feng. Even if all my bodies are killed, remote ocean can recover them immediately. After all, even the godly power of the other bodies combined was nothing compared to what the remote ocean contained. The only thing I need to be mindful of is my true treasures. Luo Feng left his god country but was soon summoned by Primal Chaos City leader. At the apex of Thunder Island, Luo Feng showed up and saw Primal Chaos City leader standing at the edge of the cliff. Teacher, Luo Feng said respectfully. Come here, Luo Feng, Primal Chaos City leader said as he turned around, saw Luo Feng, and smiled. Luo Feng walked to Primal Chaos City leader, confused. Yes? Luo Feng stood behind Primal Chaos City leader. Primal Chaos City leader said, stand right next to me and look down. Luo Feng took a step forward and stood side by side with Primal Chaos City leader. He looked down and saw fog pervading the mountain. Through the haze, he could see the indistinct shapes of palaces. All the undying fighters of the virtual universe company live here. Primal Chaos City leader said, looking down. The undying fighters live in the palaces on Thunder Island. On the mountainside of the center mountain on Thunder Island live the Universe Knights. As for Universe Masters, they live in the palaces at the top of the mountain, and some mighty Universe Overlords live there as well. Luo Feng nodded. He realized that having a palace at the top of the mountain on Thunder Island meant standing among the supreme beings in the universe. Now that you've become undying, it's your time to pick a place to live, Primal Chaos City leader said. Although I haven't seen you fight since you became undying, my guess is that you have the power of a universe knight. Choose a place on the mountainside and build a palace. Luo Feng was dazed. The mountainside? Yes, teacher, Luo Feng answered respectfully. Every universe knight has their own dimension as their territory, Primal Chaos City leader said. I'll arrange a new dimension for you. Luo Feng blinked in surprise. He was already treated as a universe knight. Universe Knights are already regarded as seniors of the human race, and they are involved with lots of important issues. Primal Chaos City leader said, looked at Luo Feng. Universe Knights can all participate in the Supreme Council of the human race, but you're just undying. Palaces on Thunder Island, dimensions in the virtual universe. These are all arranged by the virtual universe. I can make the decisions regarding those issues. However, the qualifications for joining the Supreme Council is decided by the entire human race. The virtual universe can't solely decide. I understand, Luo Feng answered. The Supreme Council. He had heard of it before. It was a council that only great beings stronger or equal to Universe Knights could participate in. Lots of major issues concerning the human race were discussed in the council. I believe that you have the power of a Universe Knight, but that's not enough, Primal Chaos City leader said. You need to show your power and prove that you're entitled to the status of a Universe Knight. Empty words are not enough. I understand. Luo Feng nodded. Without battle records, nobody would be convinced. After all, humans were not special life forms. Luo Feng was incredible when he was a sector lord, and hence some great beings suspected that Luo Feng defeated the undying fighters using some special valuables. However, that didn't mean that Luo Feng could defeat Universe Knights. Universe Knights and undying fighters were at two totally different levels. Undying fighters were only foot soldiers, future great beings and mentors of great beings of the next generation. But Universe Knights were the elites of a race. As for Universe Overlords and Universe Masters, they were the real pillars of a race. Okay. Primal Chaos City leader nodded. Choose a place on the mountainside. Yes, teacher. Luo Feng flew out and dove towards the mountainside. Primal Chaos City leader watched Luo Feng diving. He had witnessed the scene when Luo Feng became undying, and thus he believed that Luo Feng had the power of a Universe Knight. He even believed it when Luo Feng said he could defeat Shuchong Emperor. On the mountainside of the Central Mountain. The Central Mountain was a towering peak, and the palaces built here, where the Universe Knights lived, stood adjacent to each other. Their servants and disciples all lived in the same palaces, which had diameters of tens of thousands of miles or even more. These great structures only enhanced the beauty of the enormous Central Mountain. Luo Feng flew above the mountainside and looked for a suitable location. Luo Feng, he heard a voice say. Huh? Luo Feng turned his head and saw a shadow flying toward him. It was Nine-Blade Knight in a cyan cape and purple scales on his head. Nine-Blade Knight. Luo Feng smiled. Nine-Blade Knight greeted Luo Feng like a friend. He thought to himself, although Luo Feng is not as strong as I am, he's the renowned peerless genius and a disciple of Primal Chaos City leader. We're at the same status in the virtual universe. Nine-Blade Knight smiled. Luo Feng, are you going to see your teacher? No. Luo Feng shook his head. I'm looking for a place to build my palace. Build a palace? Nine-Blade Knight was perplexed. You've become undying, I presume, but undying fighters are supposed to build palaces at the bottom of the mountains. Why are you flying here? Ordinary undying fighters were not qualified to be on the mountainside. As for the servants in the palaces of the Universe Knights, they were only allowed to walk inside the palaces. Primal Chaos City leader asked me to pick a place on the mountainside to build my palace, Luo Feng answered. Nine-Blade Knight was dazed at first. Then he felt discontent. The very idea was outrageous. Everyone needed to follow the rules. Even the person in charge of the virtual universe should be expected to appeal to the great beings under him before making such a decision. Building a palace on the mountainside was a privilege of Universe Knights. Even the invincible emperors had to build their palaces at the bottom of the mountain. There should be no exceptions. Then keep searching, said Nine-Blade Knight. He frowned and left. Luo Feng murmured, Nine-Blade Knight seems upset. But I can't blame him, as I haven't proven my power yet. It's understandable that some Universe Knights are not comfortable with this. But he didn't scold me, perhaps because he doesn't dare offend Primal Chaos City leader. Luo Feng picked his location and architecture style that day. The virtual universe helped Luo Feng build the palaces. But there was disturbance among the Universe Knights after Luo Feng began building palaces on the mountainside. Blade River Emperor, Luo Feng, is building palaces on the mountainside? Even if he became undying, he's not qualified to build palaces on the mountainside. It's outrageous. He needs to show his power no matter who his teacher is. Primal Chaos City leader. The Universe Knights on the mountainside gathered quite often. It was a social circle of Universe Knights, and normally, They felt superior to all undying fighters. But now, there would be an undying fighter living among them. Although they didn't dare to swear because of Primal Chaos City leader, they all expressed their discontent when they gathered. This video will end here.